once again, dear viewers, you're watching ERi-TV. Welcome to this special edition of Open Mic, which is being conducted on this special occasion of 8th March, International Women's Day, with our guest for this evening, Ms. Mariana Groba Gomez, Senior Gender and Human Rights Advisor at the UN Office here in Eritrea. Welcome to our program, Ms. Mariana.
So thank you, Rafael, for having me in your program. My name is Mariana. I am the Senior Gender and Human Rights Advisor here in the United Nations Resident Coordinator's Office. My job is to advise the Resident Coordinator, the United Nations country team on gender equality, mainly on women's rights issues.
Can you give me a concrete example of your work?
Sure. So, for example, last December, I conducted a training on the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, a convention called CEDAW for short, to around 30 participants, along with AMADE, the National Union on Eritrean Women, to gender focal points of relevant ministries, to teachers, to lawyers, and we touched upon also a variety of gender equality issues, mainly women's rights issues and concepts like gender-based violence, because of violence against women being something that globally we are worried about and that hamper developments. So this convention is particularly interesting because it came after many years of efforts to have a text, an international human rights treaty that would address the issues of women. Quite interesting as well is that Eritrea, it was the first text, the first treaty that Eritrea ratified just after independence, showing also how strong the Eritrean women were in their battle for independence, and how gender equality is important in this country. So this treaty addresses equality, the principle of substantive equality. And it was the first time also that states recognized the necessity to intervene, to change domestic laws in order to adopt the standards on women's rights in their national frameworks, but also how cultural norms and tradition and stereotypes were being used against women. And so this treaty conveyed that there was no excuse to deny women's human rights. So it was a very important text, and I believe that this was important also because it is not widely disseminated. It's a text that is ratified by a very big majority of states, but as you know, in the world, women's rights are lagging behind.
Okay, lately you also took part in training for journalists at the Ministry of Information on the occasion of March 8, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yes, so thanks to the Ministry of Information, we had an amazing opportunity with AMADE and the UN agencies present here in Asmara to conduct a training to around 52 journalists on gender awareness, gender sensitive language, and how to do a better gender balance media work. So as you know, media is a very important, plays a very important role in shaping public policy, in changing behaviors. Media has the capacity of entering in our houses through television, through radio, and with social media, information goes very fast. We hardly have time to digest it actually now. And so it is very important that, that the media becomes also a partner in achieving gender equality and challenging stereotypes. in a recent study, actually, from the Global Media Monitoring Project, that came out in 2015. The figures are quite staggering. Women's news only represent 10% of the media. 20% of the spokespersons or the interviewers are women, and only 4% challenge gender stereotypes. So we still have a very male-dominated industry in Western societies. I don't know if you are aware of the BBC scandal, but women are not only underrepresented in the Western world as well, but also underpaid compared to their male counterparts. So the media can be an ally in fighting stereotypes, in interviewing more women, not only on women's issues, but interviewing women on global issues, because they do have a voice. And in that sense, I think that we could create a much more creative environment, a diverse environment, innovation, by bringing more gender awareness into media rooms and production.
But what exactly is the role of media in gender equality agenda?
Well, media historically has shaped the way we think, in the sense that it can determine the way we vote, for example, so it has a very big impact. And I think that the media, depending on the regions, of course, can bring women's issues that traditionally are left only for the household, or are seen as domestic issues. Like, for example, fistula. Fistula is something that affects about 2 million women across Africa and Asia. It's a condition that can be treated. It has to do with protracted labor with no healthcare assistance. It leaves women incontinent, ashamed, like it was a curse, something that they did bad and that's what happened to them. And actually it's something treatable. It's actually something treatable here in the Mendefera hospital. So these kind of issues, also on female genital mutilation or cutting, that has absolutely that is extremely harmful practice. And that can be, by using media and talking about these issues, we can create awareness in the households. Also, things like management of menstruation. For example, girls sometimes do not go to school because they're under menstruation. It's not something to be ashamed about. It's something that has to do also with public policy, and it's very important that the household knows these things, that fathers, brothers, along with women, talk about these issues openly, because they do hamper development. They make little girls stay at school. And along with that is also early child marriages that are very negative for young girl education, but also can create a series of health issues. So these are a few of the things that the media could or can put in the public eye, bring to the households to discuss, bring from the shadow. It's not something to be embarrassed about, it's something that needs to be discussed so that we can get rid of these harmful practices once and for all.
Well, today we are celebrating 8th March, Women's International Day. Why is this day commemorated around the world? And why is it so important?
Well, 8th of March was determined as the day that women come together to celebrate the achievements brought so far, but also to reflect on the way that we still have to go forward. It comes from the labor movement at the turn of the 20th century. And it brings women together with no division based on nationality, religion, ethnicity. And it's important to recognize this day and also the historical imbalances between the relations between men and women, the division of resources that are clearly exacerbated also by the distribution of resources between countries, developed and so-called developing countries. And it's a day also that we reflect on how violence against women, it takes many forms. It's still very much in the public discourse lately, as we've seen. And that tradition and culture are still excuses or are being misused to actually justify some form of violence against women or take away the rights that women and girls have.
Ms. Mariana, how do you see gender equality contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals?
Well, gender equality is a goal in itself, goal number 5. So that it's important to know that these 17 Sustainable Development Goals were agreed upon by countries, by all countries, but gender equality is really a cross-cutting issue. For example, end poverty is one of the goals. To end poverty, you need to focus on the poorest, and the poorest are the elderly, the children, and often the women. It's important to know that, for example, the global gender pay gap is estimated to about 23%, and increases to 40% in for rural women. According to a recent study, closing the gender gap in employment could add up to $12 trillion in GDP by 2025. So it's also interesting to know, for example, that 1 extra year in school could add 25% of income in a girl's future income. So rural women, for example, women face extreme discrimination. They account for a quarter of the world population, a majority of 43% of the agricultural force, but they struggle having access to the finances, to technology, to create climate resilience, for example. They also don't have as much access to land, quite less than men, even though they are such a big number in the industry. And for climate action, for example, this is a big problem, because with climate changing, the window, the burden is even bigger on them. You have rural women and girls having to fetch more water, wood, with scarce biomass, for example. The gender equality, number 5, the gender equality sustainable development goal, aims at reducing inequalities between men and women. And it has a series of indicators, for example, reducing harmful practices like FGM, like female genital mutilation or cutting, and early child marriages, but also addressing the fact that women have less access to technology. But what is important here is to remember that gender is really a cross-cutting issue, and it is relevant for all the SDGs. For example, you take poverty, reducing inequalities, and you see that women, the elderly, children, this is all a gender angle, are the most affected by low incomes, by poverty. So if you want to address this issue, you need to take a gender angle. Rural women, for example, they have less access to land, less access to resources, finance, technology. They are less present in decision making regarding natural resources, for example. They're active actors as well of climate degradation, because they are the traditional people that go fetch the wood and the water in a world where you have more droughts and scarcity of these resources. So it is extremely important to target these more vulnerable populations, but also because they're they have an extreme strength in mobilizing communities. So if you teach a woman or a girl, you can be assured that it will have a domino effect into the communities. And also with climate action, which is a very important sustainable development goals, the window is closing. So there's less and less opportunities, the gap is even bigger on women. So I think that when we talk about SDGs, it is fundamental that we take a gender mainstream approach, as we like to call it. It's a technical word, but it's important to be aware that gender is really everywhere. Nothing is gender neutral. No policy is gender neutral.
Ms. Mariana, we're actually running out of time, but if you can finally give us a few suggestions on how best the government can improve on gender equality agenda.
Certainly. Well, I think that it's very important to continue empowering AMADE, because they know better than anyone what are the issues of the Eritrean women, especially in rural areas. Creating awareness and disseminating information about harmful practices is key, so that we can get rid of them. But also it is imperative for gender equality to have data. Sex disaggregated data on forms of violence against women, from female genital mutilation to any kind of harmful practice like early child marriages, maternal health, so that we can use that data to better answer to the needs of Eritrean women. Of course, getting rid of the socioeconomic barriers that women in Eritrea encounter. And finally, very importantly, involving the men. Again, gender equality is not a women's issue, it's a society issue. So men, or fathers, or brothers, or sons need to be completely on board with us.
We thank you for your time, Ms. Mariana.
Thank you.
Dear viewers, that wraps up this week's Open Mic. It is good night from us.